Yeah, no. We'll start the session now. Okay, so the next topic that we will see is databases. I have sent you one PDF to install it also. So that PDF has the instructions to install Oracle 11G on your machine. Okay, so we are going to see the connectivity for that today. Tomorrow I will show you how to connect to MySQL server also, because these are the two common data sources, databases that you usually connect to. Okay, so that is also possible. Okay, so I will show you how to connect to that also. So basically, what are databases? Can anyone explain it to me? Anurag, Swapnil, Shreya, any one of you?
Databases are a collection of tables and other database objects.
Yes, correctly said. So basically, when I am storing the data in Excel, what happens in Excel is I can store the data up to certain limits, right? When I talk about storing the data up to 1 lakh, 10 lakh, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakhs, it's fine. I can still store it and I can manage it. But imagine storing 1 million rows, 10 million rows in Excel. It will not work. Sometimes there are chances of data being lost. So in such cases, what we can do is we can actually store our data in databases. So databases are your efficient system of storing the data. Okay. So in databases, you can store your data efficiently and you can retrieve your data efficiently as well. That is why databases are used. And like Anurag said correctly, databases usually consist of tables. But before that, the first thing is the highest level object that you can have is databases. Within database systems, you'll have multiple schemas. So schema is the logical representation of the information. Which information is being stored in what tables is actually maintained here. And then within the schema, you will have the tables. Okay, so basically you can consider this table structure as your Excel table, which you see here. Okay, so like you store your data in your Excel sheets, similarly the data is stored in this table. Okay, the data types and formats, those concepts apply to the same structure. Okay, so let's say if you want to retrieve or if you want to prepare your report on the database tables, you know how to do that. So for that, you'll have to select the required connector, and from that connector, you'll have to actually load your data. Okay, so let me show you that example. So here I click on this get data and I click on more. Now, since I have installed Oracle on my machine and currently Oracle services running on my machine, so I will try to connect to Oracle database. So I have clicked on get data more, and from the connectors, I will select the Oracle database. Okay. It is taking time because Zoom, Power BI, and Oracle, all three are working at the same time. You can see the list of sources. From the source, I select Oracle and I click on connect. When you click on connect, it will ask you for the server name. Usually when you work in corporate organizations, and if a requirement comes where you have to prepare the reports on the databases, the first thing that you should do is you should ask them what type of database are we dealing with, what is their version, where is that server, and you should ask for the read-only access to that. Okay. Okay, so usually when you start working in as part of requirement analysis, you should try to get the details like server name, user id, and the password and the port on which you will actually try to connect to this database. Okay, so these details would be actually provided to you by someone else. Okay, usually when you are the Power BI developer, you will eventually get the read only access to your database. So there are different access levels that are maintained across the database. So one is the admin level access. We also call it as the DBA, database administrator. Then we have the developer access, and then we have the reader access, which is also frequently given to testers also. So similar type of access you will also get it. Okay. So in read level access, you will be only able to read the data. You will never be able to modify the data. And since we are working as Power BI developer, we hardly care whether to modify the data. We are just going to fetch the data and we are going to prepare our report. Okay. Now in that case, what will happen is we'll take the data and we'll try to prepare the report. So in here, you will obviously get the server name. Usually server names are huge, but since you have installed Oracle on your machine, so from in the server name, you can directly type localhost and you can get the server name. Okay. So let's say I type localhost here. Okay. So in your machine also, since you have installed Oracle, you can type localhost and you should be able to connect to the server. The next thing is the data connectivity mode. So in Power BI, two types of connectivity modes are provided. One is called as import connectivity mode. Second is called as the direct query connectivity mode. So what is this import and what is this direct query? So usually when you connect to any data source, any database with the help of import connectivity mode, then in that case, the data is actually brought into Power BI report and you will be actually able to see your data in the data tab. The second connectivity mode which is offered is called as direct query. As the name suggests, in that case, the data is actually stored on the database. The data doesn't come to your Power BI report. It is actually stored on the server. You just create a connection, a direct connection between the database and your report. So in that case, the data will not come to your report and hence you will not be able to see the data in the data tab. Okay. So that is the difference between the import query and direct query. Okay. Now, obviously, when you have huge amount of data, importing that much amount of data will take a lot of time, right? So when your data set size is huge, you will eventually go for direct query because loading that much amount of data, billions of rows into Power BI can take a lot of time. Second thing, when I have a data, but that data present in the database is not in proper format. So if the data itself is in not in proper format and the data set size is, I would say small, then in that case, I cannot use that for directly my reporting. So in such cases, what I will have to do is I will have to bring the data to Power BI, clean it up, add a few columns, and then prepare my report. So in such cases, you will use the import mode. Okay. In case of direct query, if I can't see the data, obviously I cannot create add columns, I cannot create new tables and so on. So usually whenever you use the direct query, a lot of the functions are not supported. So most of the functions are not supported in direct query mode since you can't see the data. Okay. So for the current case, I will just select direct query. Okay. And I will click on OK. Once this is done, afterwards, what happens is it will ask me for user ID and password. Since user ID and password is already stored in my Power BI report, okay, it is not going to ask me. It is going to move to the next window. In the next window, it will show me the database. This is my Oracle database. And within database, these are the structures that are present. So within this structure, I have this HR schema. Within that HR schema, I have different tables. So those tables I'm going to load it. So you can see all these structures. So from here, I will select this HR and in HR, I can see list of all the tables that are present. So this is exactly similar to your Excel sheet. Okay. So from this, I can select any specific table. So from here, I select employees and I select departments. So these are the two tables that I'm loading and I click on load button. So it is creating the connection and it is trying to load the data. So once connection is done, it will try to load the data. Now, can you see the data tab on the left hand side? Can anyone see it? No.
No.
Yeah, reason being is you have loaded the data in the direct query mode. So in direct query mode, as I said, the data will never come to your Power BI report. It is actually stored on the database. We are just trying to access it. So an example of it is if you select any field from here, the data for that checkbox or the data for that column is actually brought from the database. Okay. So in this case, that is how the data is brought. Now, here the third tab comes into the picture. So I have loaded two tables. One is called as employees. Second is called as the departments table. So if you carefully see here, we haven't seen this tab as of now because we were just loading single Excel sheets. We were not loading anything. But as of now, if you see this, this is where you will see the information now. So if two tables are connected to each other, that information is directly shown here in the form of this line, which you see here. Okay. So in this case, I have loaded two tables, employees and departments. Okay. So these two tables are actually connected to each other with the help of relationship. So the arrows that you see, solid line and dotted line, we call it as the active and inactive relationship. Okay. So the solid line that you see is active and the dotted line that you see is called as inactive. At a time, Power BI will allow only one active relationship between the two tables. Okay. And inactive relationships can be any number. Okay. This active and inactive relationship concept, which I am telling you right now, is part of Power BI. Okay, it is not part of databases. So don't confuse it with database. In database, every relationship is active. Okay. Now in here, if you see this solid line, if I want to understand how this solid line is behaving and to which this solid line is connected, all I have to do is just put my cursor on the solid line. When you put your cursor on the solid line, you can clearly see I have one column department underscore ID in the departments table, and I have a department underscore ID column in the employees table. So these two columns are connected to each other with the help of relationship. Okay, so basically this relationship explains how the tables are connected to each other. Okay, so you might have heard this question, so where you want to prepare the report, okay, a Power BI report on two different tables. So in order to prepare the report on two different tables, those two tables should be connected to each other with the help of active relationship. Okay, so if two tables are connected to each other, then you can pull fields from both of the tables and you will be still able to prepare the report. For example, I'll show you an example. So here what I will do is I will select first name and last name from employee table, and I will select the department name from the department table. Can you see here? So in this case, first name is also present, last name is also present, and department name is also present. So in this case, you are able to pick up fields from both the tables because of that relationship. So unless and until these two tables are connected to each other like this, you will never be able to filter the data, or you will never be able to actually use the multiple columns from different tables. Okay, that is the important concept that you should know. Now when you see this solid line, in this solid line you see something like one written here and something like asterisk written here. Okay, so what is this one and asterisk? So this one and asterisk is what we call it as cardinality. Okay, so when you talk about relationship, every relationship has a cardinality. So cardinality shows the distinctiveness of your data. How distinct your data is in each and every column between the relationship is actually shown here. So in terms of, I would say the cardinality, we have three types of cardinality. One is called as one to one, second is called as one to many or many to one, and the third one is called as many to many. So these are the three cardinalities which exist between the two tables. Okay, between any relationship. Now in here you see one written, in here you see asterisk. So this relationship is of type one to many, meaning if you see this, these two columns are connected to each other in the databases, department underscore id, department underscore id. So in here what this means is department id is unique here. That means it is present only once in this department id table. Okay, but the same department id is repeated here multiple times in the employees table. Okay, I will explain it to you in real example. Okay, so when you join any organization, what happens is in the induction they tell you the departments, the different departments that an organization can have. If you carefully observe, in an organization you will hardly have 7 to 8 departments. But when you see the employee count is usually 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, sometimes 1 lakh also, right? 1 lakh plus also. So in that case, if you have limited department, multiple employees report to the same department, right? So if I'm maintaining employee data in employee table, and if I'm maintaining those 7 departments in those 7 departments table, what will obviously happen is I will have the same 7 departments, but the department ID of those 7 departments will keep on repeating in the employee table. Okay, so that is why this department ID side which you see on the employees has asterisk. Asterisk means many. So maybe department ID is present only once in the departments table, but the same department ID gets repeated again and again in the employees table. Okay, that is how the cardinality is defined. Another example is, let's take an example of college. So in college we have 5 to 6 departments, and each department has close to I would say 600 to 700 students. So that means if you create a table to maintain the departments will be unique there. But if you maintain a I would say a table which is storing the student information, in that student information table the department id would be repeating, because multiple students, close to 600 700 students, will have the same department id. Okay, so that is also an example of one to many relationship. Any questions here? Any questions so far?
Not yet.
Okay, moving on. Now I think Anurag was there, right? Anurag asked this question: what is this arrow that I see? So this arrow is the direction of this cross filter. So what do I mean by cross filter is, with this cross filter direction we can decide which table can filter which table. So here the direction is pointing from our departments to employee table. So here the meaning is that the department table can filter the employee table, but tables employee table columns cannot filter the departments table. Okay, let me show you an example of it. Okay, so here in this table that I have prepared, I have taken first name, last name, and department name. So from where this department name is coming, it is coming from this department table. How come it is coming? How come this department name is calculated? The moment you selected first name and last name, and the moment you selected department name, so it took the department ID from this employee table. Okay, for every first name, last name, it searched in this department ID column, and wherever there was a match, a value was written. That is why you see the department names here. Okay, now let's say I apply the filter on the department name. So in this filter section, I select accounting. The moment I select accounting, you can see two rows for accounting, Shelley Higgins and William Gates. Okay, so these are my departments. Now the next thing that I do is, if I see department name column has selected accounting and I have Shelley Higgins and William Gates here, if you check the first name filter will show you with Shelley and William as the checkboxes. And if you check the last name, you will see Higgins and Gates as your filters. Okay, so based on your department name value, automatically the first name and last names are filtered. Okay, with me so far? Any questions? Now what I will do is I will remove this department name filter. Now all those are displayed. Now I will do the reverse. What I will do now is I will apply the filter in the last name. So in the last name, I select Atkinson. So when you select last name as Atkinson, Atkinson gives you only one row, which is first name is Mose and department name is shipping. So let's go to first name, and in the first name, if you see, you can only see one row. One row is for Mose, Mosze. Okay, but if you check the department name is showing you all the columns, all the values. Why? Because of this cross filter direction. What you mentioned just here is you should be able to filter all the columns of department will be able to filter the employee table columns, but employee table columns will not be able to filter the department columns. That is what I meant by this cross filter direction. Okay, so that's how this cross filter direction works. If you want to change it, of course you can change it. So anything related to this relationship, if you want to change it, there are two options. Either you can click on this manage relationship. Second option is you can right click on this and you can say properties. From here also I can see the relationship. For example, here if you see, you can see employees, departments, the common column is selected, department ID here, department ID there. Cardinality is automatically detected as many to one, one to one, one to many. So here many to one will keep it. And here the direction is mentioned, cross filter direction. So in this case, what we will do is we will select the both. And then in that case, the employee table will also be able to, I would say filter the department table. Okay, so in that case you were seeing the all the values of departments table, but here you will not be able to see that. Okay, so let me select that. So both. Okay, so I'll select both here and I click on OK. Okay, now you can see the direction has changed both. And now see the department table. Can you see the department table, department name values now? The department name values are filtered. Clear with this? Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. Now the next thing that we will see, this was your active relationship. Always remember, between the two tables you will always see one solid line, that is your active relationship. Now coming to inactive relationship, this is your inactive relationship. So if when I put my cursor on this inactive relationship, I can read the values. So here the relationship exists between two columns, One column is the employee ID, the other column is manager underscore ID. Okay, so in this, the relationship it is between employee ID and manager ID, and in here the direction is different. So here one is written, here asterisk is written. So obviously in the employees table, employee ID is unique, that is why it is repeated only once, so that's why one is written. And the same employee ID is repeating multiple times in the manager ID, that is why asterisk is written. So this relationship is also of type one to many. Okay, now coming to this, what is this inactive relationship? An inactive relationship is a one which cannot be used for filtering purposes. For example, I selected first name, last name, and I selected department name. So the moment I selected department name, it was actually showing me the data for each and every department based on the active relationship which exists between department ID and department ID. Okay, so what that means is, with the help of this inactive relationship, I will never be able to filter the data. Okay, so I can just view the information, I can just understand this relationship, but I will not be able to filter the data, or I will not be able to calculate anything directly because of this inactive relationship. So what is this inactive relationship between employee ID and manager ID? For every department, you have a head of department, right? So employee ID of that head of department is actually stored in the manager ID column. So that is why this employee ID keeps on repeating for multiple rows in the department table. Reason being, sometimes one manager or one employee can be head of multiple departments. So that is what is happening here. One manager is kind of head of multiple department. That is why manager ID is being repeated here. Okay, so in here, I will never be able to fetch the data directly with the help of inactive relationship. So that is the question I would say that we have to solve. So for that, I have some functions which we will see. But yeah, for now, this is the information that we have. Okay, so this is my inactive relationship. Now, what I will do now is I will delete this data. Done. And now we will try to connect to the same database, but this time we will try to connect to this database with the help of direct query. Sorry, import mode. Okay. So in the import mode, I will be able to see the data, so I can write certain DAX functions also. So let me delete the data from the model. So I'll delete it from here. Okay, my data is deleted. Now I'll try to get the data, but before that, so here, same thing, get data, more, and from the more, I will select the Oracle database. So from here, I select Oracle and I click on connect. In the server, I will still provide local host. This time I will connect it with the help of import mode. I click on OK. And in here, this is the window which I wanted to show you. So once you select your database, you have to provide your user ID and password. This window will also come in direct query. But what happened is, since the credentials were already stored, I was not able to show you that. Now I have removed the credentials. That is why it is asking me to enter the user ID and password. So when you connect in organization, this is the window that you will see. You will have to either select Windows or the database credentials. So basically Windows means your current machine's credentials, you can use that. Second thing is database. That means if you have separate credentials other than your login information for database, you can specify it here. So for the current context, I have username as HR and password as HR. I'll just connect to that. So here, same list, same structure. I'll select HR, and from HR, I'll select employees and department. So now the data is being loaded. Since we have connected in the import mode, you would be actually able to see the data. So you can see rows being loaded. Let me click on the data tab. See, so here when you go to the data tab, you can see the data tab also, and in here you will be actually able to see the columns and their respective values. So this department table has 27 rows. These are the type of values that you're dealing with. When you click on employees table, you'll be able to see the data of employees. So employee ID, first name, last name, email, phone number, hire date. These are all the information that is actually visible here. In the modeling tab, if you go, you'll see the same structure. Nothing changes here. So you have active relationship between department ID and department ID. Cross filter direction is from departments to employees. And then you have inactive relationship between manager ID and employee ID. And in here, if I prepare the same visualization, that first name, last name, and department name, it will work. Reason being is the active relationship between the two tables. Okay, so that is how the import connectivity mode works. Now let's say in this import connectivity mode, what I just said is everything works for this department ID, so I have no issues here. But let's say if I want to get this manager ID information, so this manager information, I cannot get it because this is part of an inactive relationship. So directly filtering and directly getting the respective information is not possible, but I have an indirect way. Okay, so that is what I'm going to show you. So the problem statement here, guys, which I want to tell you is, in Power BI, due to inactive relationship, you will never be able to fetch the specific information required for the inactive relationship. For example, when you see this, so this employee ID and manager ID are connected to each other. But in this department table, if I ask you, give me the manager name and give me the manager's first name, give me the manager's last name, give me the manager's code, job ID, you will never be able to get it. Reason being is, since it is part of an inactive relationship, you cannot filter the employee table directly. So in order to do that, what we will have to do is, we will have to pick up the value of manager ID from here. We will have to search it in the employee ID, and wherever there is a match, we'll have to retrieve that value. Okay, that is how we can do it here. So for that, I have a function, I have a DAX function, in fact, which is called as lookup value. So this lookup value is exactly similar to what you have used in your Excel. Okay, so in this case, let me type it here. So since lookup value function will return me value for every manager ID, and manager ID is a column, I will have to use a new column function here. So I'll just click on this new column here. So in the new column, I will write manager first name. Okay, equal to, and the DAX function name is lookup value. So the syntax of lookup value is the first is the result column name which you want. So based on this manager ID and employee ID, I'm not able to get the manager's first name directly. So that is the first thing that I want. So I will just type, give me the first name from the employee table. Now you have to specify which column you want to search in the employee table. So the relationship is between employee ID in the employee table and manager ID in the department table. So here I will select the employee ID here. So this is my employee's employee ID. This is the column which I want to search, comma. The next thing that I have to specify is which value from the department, which column from the department I want to search. So here I want to search the manager ID column. So I select this, I close the bracket, done. So what it will do is it will pick up each and every manager ID value from each and every row. It will search it in employee ID, and wherever it sees the match, it will return me the first name of the employee. So now I have the manager ID, and with respect to each and every manager ID, I have the respective first name. Okay, so this is how the value is calculated. There is one more parameter here in the lookup value, where if you don't get the result, you don't get the required result, what to do. So alternate result also can be provided here. So in order to get the alternate result, you have to say comma, and in here you can specify the value. So you can specify the column name also, or you can specify the value by yourself also. So I'll specify my value. I will say not found. So when you write not found, wherever you see blanks now, you will see not found.
अच्छा प्रॉब्ली फर्स्ट नेम अलग विद लास्ट नेम चाहिए तो ये पावर क्वेरी में करना पड़ेगा, राइट?
नहीं नहीं, इसको भी सेम. अगर इसको ये फर्स्ट नेम हो गया, राइट?
राइट.
अभी इसका ही फॉर्मूला मैं कॉपी करके लास्ट नेम भी निकाल सकता हूँ. बस पहला पैरामीटर चेंज करना पड़ेगा. फर्स्ट नेम के बदले लास्ट नेम लिख दूंगा तो भी मिल जाएगा. पावर क्वेरी में जाके कुछ नहीं होगा. पावर क्वेरी में जाके सर्च कैसे करोगे अनुराग? राइट, कॉलम से कॉलम बना सकते हो. कंडीशनल कॉलम, एक कॉलम से दूसरा कॉलम तो इजीली बन जाएगा पावर क्वेरी में. मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ कि दूसरे टेबल में जाके सर्च करके निकाल के ये कॉलम में वापस आना है. होगा क्या पावर क्वेरी में? पावर क्वेरी में ऐसा कोई फंक्शन ही नहीं है. गॉट माय पॉइंट? कंडीशन और प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट समझो अनुराग. प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट ये है कि मैनेजर का फर्स्ट नेम लास्ट नेम निकल ही नहीं सकता डायरेक्टली, इसीलिए इतना रिवर्स से करना पड़ रहा है अपने को. ठीक है, क्योंकि अगर ये डायरेक्ट फिल्टरिंग से मिल जाता तो मैं यूज ही क्यों करता ये फंक्शन. मैं डायरेक्टली ले लेता. डायरेक्टली सिर्फ डायरेक्ट एक्टिव रिलेशनशिप से मिल सकता है, और एक्टिव रिलेशनशिप से अपने को सिर्फ डिपार्टमेंट नेम मिल सकता है, बाकी कुछ नहीं. तो इनएक्टिव के लिए क्या है, ऐसे 4 इनएक्टिव रहेंगे तो अपने को लुकअप वैल्यू यूज करना पड़ेगा. समझ रहे हो आप? सो अगर कोई भी क्वेश्चन रहता है इंटरव्यू में वेयर दे आर सेइंग कि हमको इनएक्टिव रिलेशनशिप से एक कॉलम का वैल्यू निकालना है, सो आपको लुकअप फंक्शन ही यूज करना पड़ेगा. उसके अलावा कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है अपने पास. ठीक है, अभी देखो सेम फंक्शन है, बट इस बार मैंने फर्स्ट पैरामीटर को चेंज कर दिया. सो इंस्टेड ऑफ फर्स्ट नेम नाउ वी आर गेटिंग द लास्ट नेम. तो अभी क्या होगा, सेम मैनेजर आईडी सर्च करेगा एम्प्लॉय आईडी कॉलम में और उसके हिसाब से लास्ट नेम निकाल के दे देगा. ठीक है, अगर ये दोनों को कंबाइन करना है तो कॉन्कैटिनेशन के लिए अपने पास एम्परसेंट सिंबल है. सो जैसे एक्सेल में कॉन्कैटिनेट लिखते हैं, वैसे यहाँ पे बस एम्परसेंट सिंबल यूज करके कंबाइन कर सकते हैं. सिंगल एम्परसेंट. ओके, सो यहाँ पे जैसे मैं लिखता हूँ मैनेजर नेम equal to first name ampersand last name. ठीक है, तो ऐसे दो कॉलम्स के वैल्यू कंबाइन कर सकते हैं। तो इसमें कोई स्पेस नहीं है, बट अगर स्पेस चाहिए तो बीच में ऐसे स्पेस डाल के एम्परसेंड डालना पड़ेगा, तो अब आ जाए।
Yes. Yes.
तो ये थोड़ा बहुत VB जैसा है, VB क्योंकि माइक्रोसॉफ्ट का ही लैंग्वेज है इसलिए थोड़ा सा VB से कंपैटिबिलिटी जैसा रखा है उन्होंने, तो ऐसे भी लिख सकते हैं। ठीक है, सो ये कंसेप्ट कब आएगा, जब मेरे को इनएक्टिव रिलेशनशिप से कोई एक कॉलम का वैल्यू चाहिए। जैसे करंट केस में मेरे को मैनेजर का फर्स्ट नेम और लास्ट नेम चाहिए था और मेरे पास कोई भी नहीं था। ये सेम इंफॉर्मेशन अनुराग हम लोग डेटाबेस से डायरेक्टली निकाल सकते हैं। क्यों? क्योंकि डेटाबेस में एक्टिव इनएक्टिव कुछ नहीं होता, डेटाबेस में बस ज्वाइन क्वेरी होती है, राइट? So I can join the same table multiple times with multiple joins also. So I can write 2 join, 3 join, 4 join, 5 join queries also, and I can use it. But in here, I don't have that option. That is why I have to do it in the reverse way, because my Power BI will only support one active relationship. Okay. The second way I will show it to you tomorrow, not now. Okay. So for now, we will just keep it as is. Okay. Clear with this?
Yes.
Yeah. Now this was calculating the data, or I would say calculating the columns based on inactive relationship, right? Similar to this, if I want to calculate a value based on inactive relationship, how to do that? So here I'm talking about calculating the data or calculating the relationship or calculating the measure based on inactive relationship. So whenever you want to calculate the data based on inactive relationship, well, whenever you want to calculate measure based on inactive relationship, then in that case you have to use a keyword called as use relationship. This use relationship keyword is specifically used for inactive relationship calculations. The use relationship keyword will temporarily activate your inactive relationship so that you can calculate the measure. So for only that measure, that thing will work. Another important thing about the use relationship keyword is it only works with your calculate function, calculate DAX function. Okay, that is why I said that the calculate is the most important function, because calculate kind of supports almost every function that you have seen. Okay, so let me show you that also. So for that, let me load a data from Excel. So if you load the data from Excel under the modeling tab, that sometimes tables are not connected to each other, so you have to manually connect it. So that's what we call it as data modeling as part of the Power BI. Okay, usually data modeling itself is a huge topic which is usually discussed by the database people. We are not responsible for that. The database people will actually design and they will decide how the data will look like, how the data will be logically stored. So that is the data modeling, that is the actual data modeling. But in here, when you talk about data modeling in Power BI, we're just talking about connecting the tables with the help of relationships. That's what we do here. Okay. So whenever someone is saying, have you done data modeling in Power BI? You say, yes, we have done data modeling, but we were only involved in creating the relationships. Okay. Not more than that. So for the demonstration purpose, I have created one sample example here, which will help you in understanding the data. Okay. So in here, I have loaded data from two tables. So the first table that you see is this e-commerce order. So this e-commerce orders table has the list of orders from the customer. Okay, now your customer has ordered these things. So these are the respective order IDs, and the date is actually stored in this order date ID column. Then this is your order date, then order priority, quantity, discount, then ship mode, profit, unit price, shipping cost, customer name. These are some of the columns. And then you have ship underscore date underscore ID. So this is your shipping date column. So I have two date columns here. One is shipping date column, the other is order date column. And this 1 2 3 4 7 8 9 10 11 12 that you see, these dates are actually stored in this date column. See, okay. So in here you can see the dt underscore id 1 to 12 and their respective date is stored here in this column. Okay, so now what you see is you want to prepare a visualization between this date and this sales column here. Now, when you want to prepare the relation, when you want to prepare the visualization between this date column and this sales column in the e-commerce order, these two tables should be connected to each other. But when you go to the data modeling tab, you can see this is coming from database. That's why they are connected. But if you carefully observe this, these two tables are not connected to each other. Okay, the reason being is these two columns, these two tables do not have any relationship between them. So let's say if I want to create a relationship between them, so I know dt underscore id is storing my dates, and these dates, they are stored in two columns. One is called as order underscore date id, second is called as shipping underscore date id. So as you know, one relationship will be active, the other relationship will be inactive. Then how to create it? So in order to create any relationship between two columns, two tables, all you have to do is just drag and drop one column on the other. Okay, so let me show you an example. So let's say this is my order underscore date id column which I want to use. So in order to use this relationship, what I will do is I will drop this order date id into my dtid column. Okay, let's see. So I take this column from here, you can see the column here, and I'm dropping it on the dtid. Okay, so the moment I drop it, you can see one solid line is drawn. This is the first line, that is why this is active relationship. You can see dtid is unique here, so 1, and the second line is asterisk because it is repeating the value multiple times. That is why. Okay, similar to this, I can also create one relationship between this shipping date id and this dtid. So I just create the value here, I drag and drop this here, and my relationship is created. Okay, since this was the second relationship, you can see this is the inactive relationship. Okay, this is how you have to do the modeling. Okay, if I come to you saying, boss, I have loaded one data from one excel sheet which was provided by team a, I have loaded another sheet which was provided by team b. Now what I want to do is I want to create visualizations on some columns from team a and some columns from team b. How to do it? So what you will say is there any common column between the two sheets? They say no. So then you say is create a common column between the two sheets, then we can link it and then we can prepare it. Okay, that is why we need the common columns between the two sheets to prepare the report. Okay, so here I have the relationship now. Now I can prepare my report. So if you see here, like I showed you this first name, last name example, I will show you a similar example here. So first thing I will select here is date, and then here I will select the sales. So when you select date and sales here, you can clearly see it is showing you the date wise sales. So let me change the date hierarchy to date. Yeah. So you can see the date, and with respect to this date, the sales. Now, since order date is part of this relationship between the order date and e-commerce order, so the data that you are seeing as of now is with respect to order date. Okay, so in this case, everything that you see, this date column that you see and this sales value that you see, it is being shown with respect to the order date because that is part of the active relationship. But at the same time, if I want to see the same information with respect to shipping date, directly it is not possible. Why? Because shipping date is part of inactive relationship. So whenever you have this inactive relationship concept, you will never be able to calculate the measure directly. You will never be able to filter the data directly. Okay. So in order to calculate the value based on shipping date, you will have to use the keyword use relationship. Okay. So I will click on new measure and I will create a relationship for shipping date. Okay. So let me click on new measure here. So let me click on measure here. I will name this as total sales ship date. So I want to calculate total sales with respect to my shipping date. So I say equal to calculate. What I actually want to calculate is sum of sales. So I'll select e-commerce order sales. And now here you have to use the keyword which I just mentioned. The keyword is use relationship. You can see this use relationship. You click on use relationship. In use relationship, you have to specify the relationship, the inactive relationship which you want to use here. So here the inactive relationship is between DT ID and the shipping date ID. So you say DT ID, comma, and in here you have to specify the second relationship. So the second column is shipping date ID. I close the bracket. Done. My measure is calculated. Okay. So this is how the measure is calculated for inactive relationship. Now when you click on this total sales here, you can see the total for both the sales column is same, but when you filter the data based on date, one column is showing you a different information, the other column is showing you a different information. For example, when you see here, as per your order date, okay, on 28th July, on 28th August, 553.26 sales was done. But as per shipping date, nothing was done. As per shipping date, 13th October 2010, nothing was done. But as per order date, 233 was sales was done. And in here you can see the same shipping date information, right? So when you filter the same measure, when you see the same information with respect to order date, it is giving you a different value. And when you see the same information with respect to your shipping date, it is giving you a different value. This is a real use case, guys, because if you see now, the time is 9 p.m. as of now. If I go to amazon.com and if I order something, for that order, my order date will be today's date. But you know, in India, nobody is going to work till this late, right? So my order is actually going to be shipped tomorrow. So my shipping date will be 20th January and my order date will be 19th January. So when I calculate something based on 19th January, that is my order date, I will get the today's order. But if I filter the same thing based on shipping date, I will get a different value. So that is the real use case which happens in day-to-day life, where when you filter the data based on active, you get a different value. When you filter the same data based on inactive relationship, you get the different information. That is why it is important to calculate the measure based on both active and inactive relationship. That is why the use relationship keyword comes into the picture. Okay, that is why we have used this use relationship keyword. Any questions, guys?
Praful, Swapnil,
Yeah.
data modeling tab में just go in modeling tab. ये रिलेशनशिप जो है ये वन टू मैनी, ये पावर बैक मतलब खुद अंडरस्टैंड करना है ना ये रिलेशनशिप कौन सी है.
Yes. Based on the values, distinctiveness, it automatically understands Swapnil कि वो one to many है, many to one है. वो change कर सकते हो, but we never
Okay.
because वो read करके ही detect करता है. For example, it understood that DTID is appearing one time and shipping date and order date is being repeated multiple times.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other question? No. Okay. So we'll stop here. I will just summarize everything for you what we have studied today. Okay. We started with databases. The important questions is what are the two connectivity modes supported by database. So when you want to connect to any database in Power BI, you will get two modes. One is called as import, the other is called as direct query. In case of import mode, you can import the data. That means you can see the data. That means in the data tab, you will be actually able to see your data. When I can see my data, I can create new columns out of it. The second mode is direct query. As the name suggests, it is a direct connection to the database. So in that case, we are not storing the data in the Power BI. If I'm not storing the data, I cannot see the data. The next thing that we saw was relationship. So relationship defines how two tables are connected to each other. So there are two types of relationship between any two tables. First is active relationship, second is inactive relationship. There will always be one active relationship between the two tables. Inactive relationships can be many because it is not affecting anything. Always when you select any multiple columns from the two different tables, the data will always be filtered by active relationship. It will never be filtered by the inactive relationship. So what that means is, with the help of inactive relationship, I cannot filter the data, I cannot get the column values. That is the disadvantages of inactive relationship. In the active and inactive relationship, you see one arrow which is called as cross filter direction. So cross filter direction specifies which table can filter which table. By default, it is from the source table to the destinations. That means from one to many. In case of this, it will always be from one side to the many side. Okay, but of course you can right click on the relationship and you can change it. Okay, now coming to the problem statement. The problem statement that we had was, we were not able to filter the data based on inactive relationship. We were not able to get the data based on inactive relationship. So for that, I have two solutions. First solution is lookup value. So when I want to get one column value or column value from another table which is part of inactive relationship, then I have a function called as lookup value. So in lookup value, I specify the first parameter as the column which I want to get, and then I specify the inactive relationship columns like the employee ID from the destination table and the manager ID from the current table. So based on that, I will be able to get the value. Now I can get the column value. Now the second question is, if I want to calculate a measure based on inactive relationship, how to do that? So for that, I will have to use the use relationship keyword. So in the use relationship keyword can be used only in calculate. It is actually used to calculate a value. It will temporarily activate the inactive relationship. So everything remains the same, calculate, sum, anything. And in the use relationship keyword, you have to specify the two columns which are part of your inactive relationship. So when you analyze this, you see the information that the same information appears differently when analyzed with active relationship as well as the inactive relationship. So that is the use case of it. Okay. In interview, if someone is asking you to explain how to why we are using the use relationship keyword, use the example which I've used, the order date and shipping date, because this is the precise use case where we actually need the use relationship keyword. Okay, and this is the correct usage of use relationship keyword also. Okay, clear with this? Any question, guys? Just to understand this, I would suggest go through this video again before tomorrow's session. Okay, in the tomorrow's session we'll see the other DAX functions which are pending. Okay, and we will see the SQL part, the basics of SQL, which you will be needing as part of your Power BI. Okay. Okay, guys, no questions. Then thank you so much for joining. Good night.
Good night.